Okay, welcome back to the channel. This is Roberto again, and this is an interesting one that I thought about. Uh, in the one video, we did a couple videos of 270 versus 30-06, and one of the comments talking about that the same weight bullet in a 30 cal will be faster than the same weight bullet in a 27 caliber. And you know what? That's a fact of life. That's the way it is. I'm not here to argue that. I'm here to explain why that is. Now, there's some theories out there. Some people say it has to do with the surface area on the back of the bullet. There's more pressure pushing on it. But the thing is, having done some engineering and architectural drafting and mechanical drafting and working with hydraulics, that's not how pressure works. Pressure is going to be the same pressure regardless of the size of the line. The difference is your surface contact. It has nothing to do with the back of the bullet having more surface area, because there's no resistance on the back of a bullet. There's resistance on the side of the bullet where it actually contacts the barrel. It's kind of like the same idea of when you're on a road. Sports cars have really wide tires to get as much surface contact as possible. More surface contact allows that high horsepower sports car to keep a grip of the road when it goes to accelerate. Skinny tires have very little surface contact, so they're easy to peel out. Big tires have that wide foot on them, more surface contact, therefore they grab and they go because there's more resistance to breaking free. It's the same thing when it comes to the side of the bullet. So I did kind of a rudimentary drawing here and to kind of illustrate. So on the left is to represent a 150 grain 30 caliber bullet, and on the right is a 150 grain 27 caliber bullet. You notice which one has more vertically, which bullet has more contact surface? Yeah, that one. Even though this has the same weight, because it's shorter and fatter, there's less actual resistance along the sides. There's less contact with the barrel. This, being the same identical weight, though, because it's squished down and therefore elongated, has more resistance because it has more contact with the barrel. And that also varies too, like the amount of grooves you have in your barrel, the kind of grooving that is cut in, because there's variations. The most common is a 6 groove, and they are symmetrical, and they're like kind of a square cut groove. So you have two opposing points of pressure pushing in on each other at three different overall angles. So it has much more resistance because you have 2 points of contact pushing against each other onto the bullet. There's 5 that kind of like a star. There's 5 which are cool because you get no points of opposing pressure, because it's pressure, 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 and pressure. And because you have one less groove of resistance, you tend to get a little bit faster in your velocities. And you also have less bullet deformation, which leads to better accuracy and a little bit of better barrel life. There are square cut grooves. There's semicircle cut grooves, so like a rounded. And like Thompson Center uses them a lot. I know that Browning uses it a lot. As a matter of fact, part of the build I'm using 5R rifling, and I got what I could get available, and that is a square cut groove, but it is 5R. So it's going to have a little less resistance in that barrel, so it should allow for a little bit better velocities. There's even 4 groove, 3 groove, and I've heard as low as 2 groove. I don't know how I feel about the 2 groove, but the 3 groove sounds really cool because you don't need a whole lot of grip on a bullet to stabilize it and twist it. So if you're going to do a custom, take into consideration things like the type of grooving in your barrel, not just twist rate, but even the number of grooves. Because the other thing too is with more resistance comes more heat. More heat in the barrel leads to inaccuracy after more shots. So less resistance, less heat. That means you have a better barrel life. It's easier to clean. They break in faster. And typically a good barrel with like a 5R, a 4, or a 3, you're looking at somewhere between 200 and 300 more rounds per barrel, because there's less heat resistance inside that with the number of grooves. So when somebody talks about why a 30 cal the same weight is faster than, let's say, a 28 of the same weight or a 27 of the same weight, it's because of the physical surface contact along the barrel. So, because regardless of the barrel size, you're getting 65,000 PSI directly behind it. Because here's the other thing too. If you go down weight, so let's say you, instead of worrying about the weight of the bullet, you worry about the surface contact, the actual physical surface contact, you bring it down, yes, you're going to get a lighter weight bullet. But because your surface contact now becomes the same, oftentimes you see those bullets flying pretty similar velocities. Like when I did this comparison with a 150 grain, we were getting almost 3,200 feet per second with a 30-06 at 65,000 PSI. It was something like 3,175. It's not uncommon for the 270 Winchester with the smaller, with the shorter bullets, like a 130 grain or even a 140 grain, to push those numbers. It's pretty common for a 270 Winchester with a good hot load to get 3,200 to 3,250 feet per second. Why? Because you have a shorter bullet. It's not just weight, it's actually also like I said, it's the physical contact along the barrel. A 130 grain bullet has far less surface contact. And I can actually illustrate that right now. I'm going to pull these out. So like even here is like a 110 grain. I mean, look how stubby this little thing is. It's not very big. So it doesn't take a whole lot of pressure to push that out the barrel. Now, if you go into something like this, here's a 170. This is a 170 grain. So I'm going the opposite end of it. When I stand these next to each other, look at your difference in surface contact. It is tremendously different. So it's not about the weight, it's about the physical surface that's contacting the barrel. Yes, less weight takes less effort to move. That is true. But the same thing is, it doesn't take a whole lot to plug a barrel. Even the smallest bit, that oftentimes creates more resistance than those bullets do. So remember that. Whenever somebody asks, it has to do with the physical surface contact on the sides of the barrel and not so much on the back of the bullet. Because again, going back to this drawing, you can see which one's gonna have considerably more surface contact than the other. Well, there you go. There's your education for today. Tune in next time. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. I always like to be able to learn from others as well. Have a nice day, and we'll talk to you later.